fantastic. I had a great time in Brazil and great time in Rio. When we started thinking about the story, Richard Curtis and I went to Brazil and started thinking about whether we might want to spend, which in the end we spent 2 years of my life there. And there is something very profoundly moving about the communities there, about their hope and their sense of justice and their sense of optimism. I think that when there's so many stories and images and news images about people living in very challenging circumstances, seems to be they're always crying and they're always depressed. And I'm not underestimating for a moment that these people live in very challenging circumstances. But what always amazed me about Rio was the sense of community and sense of hope and sense of optimism about the future, which I found deeply infectious. Well, we spent a lot of time, even before we knew we were going to make the film, working with in different communities with different groups of kids. And we were just trying to find out whether we could tell the story there, whether we could find some kids who could bring who had the sense of determination and optimism that we wanted. And actually it became clear very quickly that actually there is this, the spirit of Brazil is one of hope and one of faith and one of brilliant exuberance. And so it was a very fast decision in the end that we could find these kids, and there was many kids that we could choose from. In fact, we were blessed with these 3 kids because they in the end brought something utterly unique, I think, to the story. Well, certainly the issues of poverty, the issues of police corruption and the issues of institutional corruption within Brazilian society are pretty well documented. I don't think we're telling anybody anything new here. There've been many films made about that. What this film is a fable, an adventure story. Yes, the kids live in challenging circumstances. What's different, I think, is when you often look at those films about corruption and poverty, they tend to be, without hope. What I found with the kids here is that they have such hope and such optimism about themselves, about getting through this particular story, this adventure story, this fable, but also a faith in the future of their own country, which I thought was just magical and sort of unusual and a strange meshing of different forms of cinema. So in one sense it's a film about social justice, but it's not a film about social justice at all. It's an adventure film. And I like that sort of mashup of different forms. Just by chance. I think that the Billy Elliot was a story really, had a story about a mining community in which there was a central metaphor about, dance in the middle of it. This is a story, an adventure story for young people. This is much more geared towards, this is much more of a young person's movie. I hope it's a family movie. I hope it's, a movie which I wanted to make because it was very unusual for me to make a sort of adventure film. But I think that was my point of interest, was trying to make an adventure film. I think it's a deeply optimistic film, but that optimism is rooted in the hopes and aspirations of the 3 leads, the 3 young chaps who play the main parts. And they are full of life and full of joy and full of hope. And I hope the film reflects their sense of optimism.